Story 1. Dogs can tell when you are coming home by how much of your scent remains in the house if you have a daily routine. Story 2. A day on Venus takes longer to complete than a year on Venus. How? It takes longer for Venus to complete one rotation on its axis than it does for the planet to orbit the Sun. Note, from memory, I believe it is only about 10 to 15 days difference, but it is still an interesting fact. Another fun fact. Aluminum used to be so precious and expensive that the cap of the Washington Monument was made of pure aluminum. At the time of construction, that aluminum would be like capping it with platinum today. Story 3. The name Arctic comes from the ancient Greek word arctos, meaning bear. It was named for the constellations Ursa Major, the Great Bear, and Ursa Minor, the Little Bear, and bears live there. The name Antarctic means not bear. Story 4. A Siamese cat's fur color depends on its body temperature. That is why the colder areas of the body, such as the nose, paws, and tail, are darker than the rest. Story 5. Some species of burrowing spiders keep tiny frogs in their burrows to keep the burrows free of insects that are too small for the spiders to catch and that might try to eat their eggs. This means tiny frogs act like spider cats. Story 6. From Pluto's discovery until its demotion from planet status, it had not completed one full orbit around the Sun. Story 7. In Switzerland, it is illegal to own just one guinea pig. If you have any, you must have at least two because they get lonely. Story 8. Bees tell their friends about good nearby flowers by dancing. Story 9. I once told my son that there was a scientist for everything. We started a tradition where he would pick something to see if people studied it, and I would give age-appropriate examples of what they do. I suggested metallurgy, the study of metals and alloys, and when we use each type. He is always talking about different eras of human history, such as the Primitive Age, the Modern Age, and the Future Age, so it is a good segue to the Iron Age and the Bronze Age. The podcastologies is similar, though it may not always use family-friendly language. I have not listened to it. Story 10. Many of the television and internet videos she watches come via undersea cables. Story 11. There is an island in Japan inhabited only by fluffy rabbits. Story 12. The building with the most toilets in the world is Wembley Stadium. Cows get excited when they solve puzzles. The filling in a Kit Kat is broken up into the fingers. Once, a man ate an airplane. Took him several years, but he succeeded. The little jump that guinea pigs do when they are happy is called popcorning. When a cat walks toward you with its tail up, it means the cat likes you and is excited to see you. Elephants make a sound that means there are bees nearby and they should leave immediately. People played golf on the moon once. I will add more if I think of them. What topics does she like? Story 13. Brigadier Sir Nils Olav is a king penguin. He is Colonel-in-Chief of the Norwegian King's Guard and serves as their mascot. He currently lives at Edinburgh Zoo in Scotland. Story 14. You have 253 comments as of this post. Original poster. Only 112 more to go for a full year of facts. Here is mine. The Romans were some of the first people to wear bikinis. Story 15. Kangaroos cannot walk backwards. Edit. I do not know who Daniel Tosh is. When I say walk, I mean hop. Story 16. When a bee is chosen to be the new queen, it is given a special type of honey that completely changes its body. This is a very simplified explanation, but it is still cool to think about, similar to how a Pokemon evolves. Story 17. Chocolate was once used as currency by the Aztecs. More accurately, cacao beans were used. Earthworms have 5 pairs of aortic arches that function like hearts. The surface of Mars is covered in rust, giving the planet its red appearance. The red food dye carmine used in many candies is made from crushed cochineal insects. A train station in Japan has a cat station master named Nitama. Cows form strong social bonds and become stressed when separated from close companions. Tomatoes were once thought to be inedible because they belong to the nightshade family, which includes poisonous plants. In some cases, tomato acidity reacted with lead cookware and caused lead poisoning, reinforcing that belief. Apples float because they are about 25% air. Pears generally sink. Wombat feces are cube-shaped. Story 18. Hippopotamus milk is pink. Some fish cough. Do not eat too many carrots or your skin will turn orange. That happened to my daughter. Some frogs glow when they eat fireflies. Before 1913, parents could mail their children to their grandmother through the postal service. Story 19. It takes a little over 8 minutes for the light from the sun to reach Earth. Story 20. There are more stars than grains of sand on all the beaches in the world. Cows can walk upstairs, but they cannot walk downstairs. Story 21. A curious 4-year-old can never be satisfied with one fact per day. Story 22. Whales are closer to cows than to sharks. You all are hilarious and she is 4. I think mom or dad will deal with the genome later. Story 23. A polar bear's skin is black. Wow, gold. Thank you so much. Story 24. The platypus lays eggs and produces milk, making it the only mammal that could, in theory, make its own custard. Story 25. This is a list of names for groups of animals. For example, a group of elephants is called a parade, a group of owls is called a parliament, and a group of wildcats is called a destruction. Story 26. Ask her to give you one fact in exchange for one of yours. This will encourage her to learn more and to try to meet the daily goal of one fact before bed. Story 27. It rains diamonds on other planets. Story 28. Male goats urinate on their heads to smell more attractive to female goats. Story 29. Humans are bioluminescent and glow in the dark, but the light we emit is 1,000 times weaker than our eyes can detect. Story 30. Male seahorses carry their young in a brood pouch instead of the mother. Story 31. Lobsters were once regarded as disgusting, low-class food. Feeding them to prisoners too often was considered cruel and unusual punishment. They are essentially large sea roaches. Story 32. Your hand is exactly the same size as your face. Thwack. Story 33. Butterflies smell with their feet. Edit. Wow. Thanks for my first gold, stranger. Story 34. 1. Egg-laying animals do not have belly buttons. 2. Slugs have 4 noses. 3. Camels have 3 eyelids. 4. Flamingos turn pink from eating shrimp. 5. Kangaroos cannot walk backward. 6. A hummingbird weighs less than a penny. 7. Broccoli is classified as both a vegetable and a flower. 8. The Hawaiian alphabet only has 12 letters. 9. Some fish can cough. 10. Snails breathe through their foot. 11. If you keep a goldfish in a dark room, it will turn white. 12. Bullfrogs never sleep. 13. Elephants can't jump. 14. Pigs can get a sunburn. 15. Fish can drown. 16. The average American eats approximately 35,000 cookies in their life. 17. Only male turkeys gobble. 18. Penguins are the only birds that can swim but cannot fly. 19. Male kangaroos are called boomers and females are called flyers. 20. Koalas sleep 22 hours a day. 21. Kangaroos can't smell. Story 35. The distance from your inner elbow to your wrist is the same as the length of your foot. This is fun because it sounds insane. The forearm looks longer, but if you place your foot against your arm, you will see that it is accurate. If you hold both hands in front of you and air write a word, your non-dominant hand will write an exact mirror of your dominant hand without conscious effort. It also works with shapes if a child is too young to write words. Story 36. Pufferfish are full of water, not air. I do not know if that is mind-blowing, but I learned it at the age of 38. Seems logical now, but it never crossed my mind before. Also, a spinning disc moves faster at the outer edge than in the middle. Story 37. What body part grows 10 times its size when stimulated? The pupil of the eye. Story 38. The pyramids were ancient when Cleopatra was alive. There were woolly mammoths on the planet when the pyramids were being built. We are now farther away from the first man going to space than the first man in space was from the first airplane. Joanne Kathleen Rowling is richer than the Queen of England. The Queen of England's personal net worth is about $520 million. Joanne Kathleen Rowling's personal net worth is about $1 billion. The entirety of all the planets in the solar system can fit in between the Earth and the Moon. Sea otters hold hands when they sleep and have a favorite rock to hold onto in a secret pouch. A blue whale's heart is as big as a Volkswagen Beetle. Some penguins propose to mates by bringing them rocks for a nest. Rainbows are circles. The frequency of a cat's purr has been shown to improve bone density and strength. There are more trees on Earth than stars in the galaxy. Some galaxies are technically more than 5 times as thick as they are wide due to black holes throwing material out of the center. One of the Aztecs or the Incas' favorite drinks was essentially hot cocoa with hot peppers. The University of Oxford in England is older than the Aztec Empire. Fire burns spherically in space, for example, on the International Space Station. Story 39. Most matter, such as water, can freeze, evaporate, and exist as a liquid simultaneously, in a small container if the pressure and temperature are at the correct values. This looks impressive in videos. For some young children, it may be intense. Brief explanation of this phenomenon. The state of matter depends on temperature and pressure, and is shown on a phase diagram. Each substance has a different phase diagram. Given the pressure and temperature of a substance, you can find its state or phase using the diagram. The curves on the diagram are coexistence curves, which mean a substance can be in 2 phases at the same time in a closed vessel, for example liquid at the bottom and gas above it. There is a triple point where all 3 phases coexist. At the right pressure and temperature you reach this phenomenon. Bonus fact: water has 17 different phases: liquid, gas, and 15 solid phases of ice, each with a different molecular arrangement. Story 40. Rabbits usually sleep during the day, but they often sleep with their eyes open so you cannot tell. If you look closely, sleeping rabbits do not twitch their noses. Story 41. There is a planet in our solar system populated entirely by robots. Story 42. There are more ways to arrange a deck of cards than there are stars in our galaxy. Story 43. Pineapples used to be so expensive that people would rent them as a centerpiece for their parties. Scotland's national animal is a unicorn. A single strand of spaghetti is a spaghetto. At birth, a baby panda is smaller than a mouse. Violin bows are usually made from horsehair. The color red does not make bulls angry. They are colorblind. Herring communicate with flatulence. When heated, a magnet loses its magnetism. It snows metal on the planet Venus. Garlic attracts leeches. In 1992, a shipping crate full of 28,000 rubber ducks fell off a ship. They kept washing up for years. Story 44. Kit Kats are made of Kit Kat. Story 45. Parrotfish produce most of the sand in the world. They eat coral to get the nutritious parts and spit out the chewed pieces, which become sand. Story 46. Wombat poo is cube-shaped. For a while, Melbourne was called Batmania. The elephant is the only mammal that cannot jump. Story 47. Your family probably has a wealth of history behind it. Start telling them about grandma and grandpa when they were young. Story 48. When a dog play fights with you, it sneezes to show that the behavior is play. Story 49. A horse with a horn is called a unicorn. A horse with wings is called a pegasus. A horse with a horn and wings is called a pegacorn. This is useful knowledge for a 4-year-old girl. She should practice it now. In Mandarin, zebra translates as ribbon horse. Similarly, giraffes are long-necked deer, and pandas are big bear cats. Story 50. Hey, my big book of useless information may finally come in handy. The sleepiest mammals are armadillos, sloths, and possums. They sleep roughly 80% of their lives. The jump rope dates back about 400 years, when Egyptian children would jump over vines. People used to make little circuses with fleas. It started in 14th century Asia but peaked in popularity in 16th century Great Britain. Pennies were introduced in 1787, and more than 300 billion pennies have been made. Now there are about 150 billion pennies, enough to wrap around the earth 137 times. There are only about 40 1943 pennies. One sold for $112,500 in 1999. One of the founders of this coffee company was a fan of the book Moby Dick and wanted to name the company after the story's fabled ship, the Pequod, but they settled instead on the ship's first mate, Starbuck. Story 51. More time passed between the Stegosaurus and Tyrannosaurus rex than between Tyrannosaurus rex and humans. Story 52. The fact that you are asking this shows that you are probably a phenomenal parent. Story 53. Bunnies cannot move their legs independently, which is why they cannot walk and can only hop. Story 54. Giraffes have the same number of vertebrae in their neck as humans. Story 55. If you accelerated constantly at the rate of a dragster, it would take about 3 months to reach the speed of light. Story 56. Bats are more closely related to humans than they are to rats. Bats have webbed fingers that allow them to fly. The world's smallest bat is the size of a bumblebee. Not all bats are nocturnal. Some are active during the day. Some bats eat only fruit. Some bats make their roosts according to gender, with all-male roosts and all-female roosts that include the pups. Baby bats are called pups. A single bat can eat up to half its body weight, or as many as 1,000 mosquitoes in one night. Bats are awesome. Story 57. In the light spectrum, all colors combined equal white, while in art, all colors combined equal black. The speed required to break the sound barrier is lowest at sea level because of higher air density. Story 58. 6-year-olds laugh an average of 300 times a day. Mint repels mice. A ball loses its bounce when stored in the freezer. Sharks do not blink. A snowflake takes around 2 hours to reach the ground. Clinophobia is the fear of going to bed. A woodpecker can peck 20 times per second. Camels have 3 eyelids. A new star is born in our galaxy every 18 days. Story 59. As far as we know, Mars is entirely inhabited by robots. Story 60. Lobster used to be considered a poor man's food. In the 17th and 18th centuries, American colonists found enormous numbers of lobster on the shore, sometimes piled up to a man's knees. There was so much that a child could go to the shore and come home with buckets full of dinner. People became tired of it and began feeding it to farm animals, while Native Americans used it as fertilizer. This gave lobster a stigma as a food associated with poverty. The only people who ate it were slaves, indentured servants, and prisoners. A group of servants from Massachusetts sued because they were so tired of eating lobster. The courts ruled they would only have to eat it 3 times a week. It was not until the 1800s that this began to change. Railway managers discovered that if they marketed lobster as a delicacy to people unaware of its poor reputation, customers would pay for it. By 1920, it had become the food of choice for the world's aristocrats. However, its popularity declined during the Great Depression and it again became a poor man's food. By 1950, it had returned to fashion as the luxury food we know today. Story 61. You share 60% of your deoxyribonucleic acid with a banana. Story 62. Someday the sun is going to burn out. Child panics. The sun is going to burn out? Parent, don't worry. It will not happen until long after you grow old and die. Child panics. I'm going to grow old and die? Story 63. You can always see your own nose, but your brain learns to filter it out. You can always feel your tongue inside your mouth. The only thing you are able to see clearly is the exact spot you are looking at. Your brain fills in the rest. The periphery of your vision is in black and white. Story 64. You can have Google Assistant tell your child a random fact every day. Please encourage your child to stay curious. Story 65. There have been a few cases where ships carrying an elephant as part of a circus act or for a zoo sank far from land, only for the elephant to appear on the shore several days later, little worse for wear. Elephants use their trunks as snorkels. Story 66. When your tongue is in its rest position, it is actually touching the top of your mouth, not the bottom. Story 67. The alarm pheromone released by honeybees smells like bananas. Banana-scented lotion and shampoo are therefore bad ideas. When one bee stings, others may sting the same spot. A female calf with a male twin is called a freemartin. A hen lays an egg every day or every other day but does not start incubating until she has laid a full clutch. Eggs hatch about 21 days after incubation begins. Chicks peep to one another just before hatching and typically hatch together. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.